Hello, my creative friends. My name is Cheryl, and welcome to the Stamping Squad. Today I have a really sweet card to show you, and it has daisies, which are one of my favorite summer flowers. Maybe you like them too. And I'm going to show you how to make a card just exactly like this one. And at the end, I'll show you some other variations with different colors. All right, so let's get started. This card, the stamps that I used, is called Daisy Garden, and it's a very large stamp. Let me show you here. This. So it is a very large stamp. We are going to be using the Stamparatus today. So let me set this aside for a minute and show you all of the paper and cardstock pieces that you would need to make this card. First, a piece of cardstock, and I am using Tahitian Tide, one of the new in colors for this year. This piece of cardstock is 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and it's scored at 5 1/2 inches. I also have a piece of basic white, 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I have another piece of basic white, 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, same size. Then one more piece of basic white, 2 1/2 by 3 1/2, and a piece of cardstock, 2 1/4 by 4 inches. So those are all the pieces that you will need to make this card. And we're going to talk more about this one in just a minute, because you can probably see that I embossed that piece of cardstock. Okay, so let's start with stamping. So today, as I said, I'm going to use the Stamparatus because this is a very large stamp. Now there is a block that is large enough to accommodate this stamp, but it's quite large and it's very heavy. And I have really small hands, and so it's difficult for me to maneuver that block around without dropping it. So the Stamparatus turns out to be a perfect tool for me to use in making this card. All right, so let me grab my small piece of white cardstock. And you remember I showed you this piece, 2 1/2 by 3 1/2. And on our finished card, that is the size that we will put on the card. But while I'm doing my stamping, I am actually going to use a piece of white cardstock that's slightly larger. And then I would just trim it down to the size I wanted for my card. So I'm going to position this. Let's see, I'll put it right here. And then I'm going to take the stamp, and I am going to put it here kind of roughly where I want it to go on my cardstock. So right about there would work for this one. And now I'm going to take my magnet. The Stamparatus comes with 2 of these very, very strong magnets. And you see I put a little piece of Post-it tape around it just to make it easier to pick up, because once it grabs the magnetic, it's hard to kind of pick up sometimes, so this makes it a little bit easier for me. So I am going to just put that on the edge right there to help hold that cardstock in place, and then I'm going to bring over the clear panel, and I'm going to press this down, and look at that. My stamp adheres to the panel. And let me just move this over slightly so you can see a little bit better. There we go. Okay, now we're going to use Tahitian Tide ink to match our cardstock. And so let me open this up, and I'm going to ink up this stamp. And actually first I'm going to take my case and I'm going to put it under here for some support, so it'll hold that flat instead of it being on an angle. It makes it easier to ink it up. So here we go. Just want to ink this up really good. Make sure I get good coverage on the entire thing. And then I'm going to bring this over and I'm going to press. So I'm going to put a little pressure here on these 2 flowers, and then a little bit over here. It's such a large stamp that you really have to kind of work your way around just to make sure that you are getting all of the parts to adhere to the cardstock. Now, I'm gonna lift this up and take a look at it. And actually, it looks like it did pretty good. It looks like maybe down here, there's just a little bit where there could have been a little bit more ink. So I'm going to go like this and just press down on it. Sometimes you might need more ink on the stamp, and so you would just re-ink it and then bring it over. Because we're using the Stamparatus and this magnet, it allows us to be able to stamp more than one time to make the image darker. And you know, normally that's just not possible. So here we go. This is our image. Again, it's a little bit larger than what we need for the card. So what I would do then, let me move the magnet here. What I would do then is just take this and use my paper trimmer and trim it down to the size that I want. So, through the magic of video, I have actually already done that, and there it is, okay? I didn't want you to have to wait for me to do the cutting. So we would just trim that down to the size that we want our finished card to be. So let me take some pieces here. Let's start putting some things together. This is my card base, and I'm going to take my bone folder and use it to get a good crisp fold here. I'll set that aside. Then let's talk about this. This is a piece of white cardstock that I showed you earlier, and I have already taken that and used an embossing folder to get this gingham checked pattern. Now, the embossing folder that I used for that is gingham embossing folder, easy to remember. Here, let's take a look at it here. And this is what it looks like. This is in the January to June 2022 catalog, and that catalog is just around until the end of this month. Today is actually June 1st. So if the gingham check is something that you really want, you need to go ahead and grab that because it'll be gone at the end of this month. All right, this, I'm gonna hold this aside. This is gonna be the inside of our card. And let me get this little piece back over here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and glue these two pieces together. So let me use my multi-purpose glue, and this is a brand new one, so it's really going to come out easy. And I don't want to go over to all the way over to the edge, because this piece of cardstock is actually going to overhang just a little bit on this. And for me, it's really easier to layer it like this while I'm trying to center it and get it even, because when I look at the other side of it with all the daisies on it, it really makes it hard for me to see if I have it in the middle or not. And this is a little bit easier for me. So I'm gonna, and the nice thing about the glue is it does allow you to scooch things around a little bit if you need to, but I think that looks pretty nice. So we're gonna leave it at that. All right, now let me get this card base back over here. Let's go ahead and adhere this on the front. I cut this so there's just a tiny margin of blue showing around the edges. And you know, you've heard me talk about this multi-purpose glue, how it's my favorite adhesive, and it's very strong, and you don't need to use very much. But I'm going to say that when you're working with a piece of paper that has been embossed, because it has all the nooks and crannies, you do want to make sure that you get an adequate amount, okay? So again, it's not going to be big globs of glue, but it takes a little bit more just to make sure it gets adhered well, because it's not a flat piece of cardstock. And again, I'm going to mush this around just a little to get it where I want it, and I'm going to flip it over and give it a good press just to make sure it's on there well. Sometimes I like to even take my bone folder and just give it a little press like that. Give my hands a break. Okay, now let's go ahead and put this on top of here. So again, I'm just going to use my liquid glue. You could use dimensionals if you wanted to make this a pop-up. I'm not using the dimensionals because I want to be able to mail this card, and I'm going to put a little piece of ribbon with a knot on top of it, and so that's already going to give it a little bit more height, and I don't want to make it too thick so it's difficult to mail. So there we go. It's coming together. I love it. All right, so set that aside for just a minute, and let me show you what I did for the ribbon. I just took a piece of white twine, and this is doubled over, you can see. And then I've also got a piece of the crinkled white seam binding ribbon, and I'm going to actually put a little bit of, let me find it here, Daffodil Delight. That's what it is, Daffodil Delight, using my blends in the center of these flowers. And I want my ribbon to match, so I'm going to use my blends to give my ribbon some of that Daffodil Delight color. Did you know you could do that? This ribbon is very easy to color. And so I'm just using the brush tip, and I am brushing some Daffodil Delight color on here. And it's just going to be a really sweet pale yellow. Nothing too bold on this card. All right, now I want to take this and tie it in a knot. So let me just bring it around here, see if I can do that. I don't know why, but it's always harder to do when the video is recording. If anybody has a theory about that, I'd love to hear it. Oops, and as I said, it's always harder to do when the video is recording. Here we go. Hey, I wanted to let you guys know that last week we reached 500 subscribers here in the Stamping Squad. And so we're celebrating that. Thank you so much to all of you who've subscribed. What we're working towards is to have 1,000 subscribers, because then YouTube will let me go live with you guys. And I think that would be a lot more fun than me just recording and leaving it here for you. We could actually talk to each other. So that would be super fun. Okay, so here, I managed to get that done. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut that in half. So I've kind of been making these kind of knots recently. My good friend Julie Baum, she's also a demonstrator and has a YouTube channel. I will link it here for you. She taught me how to do this, and I just think it's cute. Something a little bit different when you're doing an embellishment. All right, so I'm going to take this, and I'm not going to do too much. I'm just doing a little bit of Daffodil Delight, and you see I'm not really like coloring. I'm just kind of dot, dot, dot. I don't want it to be really bright or really solid here. Just giving a little bit of color to the center of these daisies. All right, one more, just a little color. All right, and let me add, whoops, don't need that, add just another little thing here. This is Wink of Stella. And so I am going to put a little Wink of Stella. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that on the video, but I'm putting just a little Wink of Stella in the centers on top of that yellow colored blend, Daffodil Delight blend, to give it just a little bit of shimmer. Don't know if that comes through for you, but there's a little shimmer in the centers of those flowers. Okay, well, now we just need to do the inside. And I think what I'm going to do, I've got my piece of cardstock here. I think I'm going to bring the Stamparatus back. And we are going to, here we go, we are going to stamp some flowers on the inside, what's going to be the inside of our card here. Now, let's see, let me get my case back over here to give us some support. And I just want to see, because I want it right at the bottom. I just want flowers right at the bottom, kind of coming off the edge here. And it looks like that will work. So let me find my magnet. Here it is. Let's put that on there because that'll help hold my cardstock in place. So I need to ink up my stamp again. I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom because not all of that is going to go on my cardstock. Here we go. Let's put this on. I think that will add something special to the inside of the card. Again, I'm kind of focusing on each flower and pressing down. And let's see how we did. That looks pretty good. Let me just see if I can get a little bit more right here on these petals. Yes. Yay! Looks nice, looks nice. What do you think? Let me close this up and move it out of the way. Bring this back in. So this is going to go on the inside. And I'm not going to color the insides of these flowers. Of course, you could do that. But I'm just going to put it in as is with this pretty Tahitian dyed ink. Are you loving the new ink colors? I know I am. Having lots of fun with those. Last week, I did a video using some of the ink colors on a Nothing's Better Than card, and it was Nothing's Better Than Coffee. So if you missed that, be sure and go back and watch it if you want to see the ink colors in action. All right, here we go. What a lovely card. All right, we got to put on our little bow. Well, it's not a bow, it's a knot. So we have to put on our knot. Okay, I'm going to use a glue dot for that. So let me get them here. And I'm just going to press this knot onto the glue dot. And then pick it up. There we go. And I think I will just put it right here. And then I'm going to trim off these ends. Let me go ahead and catch the twine in there as well. Trim the twine off on this side. There we go. And then you can play with this a little bit and fiddle around and get the pieces where you want them. But that's it. So it's not a difficult card. You can make this card. And if you don't have a Stamparatus, you can do it with a block. Another thing that I saw someone do was to actually use their case as a block. And so they took the stamp and adhered it to the case, and then put the ink on it with the ink pad, and then used that to get the image onto their paper. So that's another option. I do love the Stamparatus though, because it does allow you, if you don't get enough ink the first time, to re-ink in the very same spot and get your image really bright and pretty. Okay, so let me show you a couple of other ones that I did. This one is using Night of Navy. So I use Night of Navy cardstock and ink, and then the same ribbon. One more, let's see. Okay, this one is with Fresh Freesia, which was one of last year's ink colors. They're still available. And I used Fresh Freesia. Again, I put a little bit of yellow in the centers. And on this one, I tied a bow and put a bow on it for something a little bit different. I've got one more. This one is a bit different from these three because I really changed up the colors. For the cardstock, I use Sahara Sand, and for the ink as well, Sahara Sand. This is Mossy Meadow cardstock, and then I use my Mossy Meadow blends to color in the leaves. And what was different? Oh, and I used So Saffron in the blends to give a little bit softer yellow color. And then again, I used the white ribbon. I did not color it this time. And then I used just some kind of beige twine on this one. So I hope that you will be inspired here and that you will get the Daisy Garden stamp set if you don't already have it, and start making some pretty daisy cards for summer. Leave me a comment, please, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already so we can start our live broadcast. And I thank you for stopping by and watching today. All right, have a great day. Bye-bye.